Alright, mates, good evening. So today I want to teach you how to fix your deep yoke line neatly without stress. Very easy. You know this kind of deep plunging neckline. That's what I'm about to teach you how to fix the yoke. So this is my already joined bodies with here waiting for the yoke to be fixed. Now this is the yoke pattern. So before we start sewing, I want to let you know something. It's like this is the yoke, and now you can see after cutting it on the nude net on the mesh, you can see that I cut the edge to be like a block form and not pointed like this because I already added the seam allowance for sewing it. Well, you can see it here. So then the extra half, then I also made it a block from that. The reason for that, now before you start sewing, the first step you're going to take is you're going to notch here to almost the half-inch seam allowance you give. Like it's not going to get to the half-inch exactly, but you notch it so deeply so you're almost getting there. Okay, like so. So you see I have it here. It's not up to half-inch, but it's almost half-inch. So when you do that, you also get your bodies where you're going to join the yoke. You see where my join stops, and I notched to this point. So these things are to make the sewing easy for you. Now get the yoke. Now if your yoke is double, it's still the same thing. What you have to do is after turning the neckline, you hold it down together on this axis before you notch the center part. So it's still the same thing. So spread it out like so. As a beginner or somebody new to this, you can always use your pin to hold it down to make it easy for you. So now here you can see I'm gonna place here. So that part that I notched will meet this part where my notching stopped on the fabric. So I'm going to hold it down. Like I said, you can go ahead and use a pin and pin all through, but me, I may not be using the pin, but you, if you are still new to this, you can always use a pin to pin down. It will help make your work easier and neat. So I'm going to put it on my sewing machine and start sewing. So it's still the same process. So like I said, this is it. I'm going to fix it like, or maybe I can use a pin and hold it down a little bit. To make it stable, so I'm going to put it in the sewing machine. Look at what I'm doing. So I'm going to start exactly from that point where my join is stopped, like where my join is stopped exactly, because you know that my notching also started there. So I'm going to stitch it very well so I can now remove my pin and make sure you're using the amount of seam allowance you added. If you added half-inch, make sure you're using your half-inch. So if you added 1/4, like quarter-inch, make sure you're also using quarter-inch to sew. So that is how it works. So we continue doing like so, sewing it. So make sure you're maintaining the same measurements. So when you get to the curvy parts, put in your needle into your fabric so you can rotate easily without the fabric and the net shifting. Okay, then you turn and continue sewing. And please make sure you're not pulling too much. Don't pull it too much, so you won't have your neck stretched. Alright, so this is it. We are done with the first side. You can see how neatly laid it is. So the second side is where the issue is. So but being that we have already used this method, like we have already notched the appropriate places, it won't be a difficult task anymore. So make sure that you notched up to the point where your stitching stopped, so that the sewing can be easy, because it will help that part to relax very well. You see. Also make sure you're starting exactly at the point where your stitch stopped, and make sure that you're not sewing on top of anything else. So maintain the same 1/2 inch seam allowance you added all through. Okay. So like I always advise while sewing, whenever you want to do any adjustment, make sure your needle goes inside your fabric to hold down whatever you are sewing, so that you can adjust easily without having your fabric or whatever you're sewing shift. Because when it does, it can practically affect the outcome of your work. So like here, when I get to the curvy part, I'll put my needle to help me rotate easily. Keep on rotating while my needle is inside. And like I said, make sure you don't overstretch your net. You know, it's stretchy a bit, so don't overstretch it. Ta-da! Okay. Oh, you can see it. So now we're going to sew that on the ironing table, but before then, let me show you what we've got. You can see how neat. And because some people, after sewing their V or plunging neckline, they end up having a U shape. But here we have our V shape exactly like we want it. Okay, so this is it. So I'm still going to show you how you can sew with your lining neatly. So first of all, let me go and iron, and I'll be back. Alright, so welcome back. Now we are about to turn the lining, turn it using our lining. So this is our lining. I've already done exactly the same thing I did for the main fabric. I've joined it, and I have also notched the point where my stitch stopped, as you can see. So please, you have to be careful here so you won't ruin whatever you have done earlier on. So this is it. So face. Now, like I told you, this notching makes everything easy. So we open it and also place this notch exactly the point where you placed the net, like where you notched. Let them meet also there, and start sewing. Now for me, I like sewing from this side, so that I will be sewing exactly on top of the stitch. So to make it possible, after you must have fixed this, hold down with your pin, then you can now flip over to the other side and start sewing. Because why I like doing so that it will direct me on where to sew exactly. Like, because I like sewing exactly on the sewn line, like the previous line I've already made before. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to hold down with a pin, so you can use as many pins as possible, and make sure your lining is stopping at the correct point. See? Okay, so I'm holding it down with my pin. So from here I can. So please, when you're holding that, make sure that the net is going in between, because the second one I did, the net didn't go inside. So I realized in time, so I'm redoing it. So the net should stay in between the lining and the fabric. And it's very important that the both of them will align, especially at the joining here. That is why you need to be careful when sewing it, so that one will not pass each other. So when you must have done that to the end, I will do it behind the camera, so I will take our time. To the end here, then you can now start sewing. Okay, now see, taking it to the end, so I'll flip over and start sewing. So as you're sewing, be checking your sewing to make sure that the net is in between. So
So I'm sewing exactly on the same stitch line I used previously. So this, so that I won't have two lines when I'm done. At this point, you have to slow down. Okay. Take it quietly so you won't. So now at this point, I like it easy. Okay. Now I'm also going to repeat the same thing for the other side. You can see. Now I'm also going to repeat the same. So this side is not much easier for me to sew on the other side without stress, without even pinning it. Okay. Now here it is. I'm going to start sewing. Please make sure there's no fold. Always make sure that your net is in between, so it won't be popping out at the center. It's very important. It's trying to do that now, but I'm pulling it back. And ensure that your joining, like the joining of the lining and that of the fabric aligns. It's very, very important, so that one part will not be stretching the other part. So any part that wants to give you issue, just notch it a little bit and continue with the sewing. Remember, always put your needle inside before rotating. So I've gotten to the curved part. So for me to rotate, I make sure that my needle went inside, and now rotate so I cannot shift. So we sew to the end. Okay, so this is it. Tada, you can see, very neat. Now there is one thing I usually do, I don't know for you. It helps me keep my seam line neat. I always add hemmings, like hemming gum, to my seam allowance. So but first of all, I'll have to reduce the seam allowance a bit. I'm reducing it a bit. So this is to make it less bulk and to reduce the bulk on this part. Okay. So what I was talking about is I can always do this thing together with as the way I'm sewing at the same time, but just for tutorial's sake, I need to show you how to go about it.
just in case this is your first time, so you won't have difficulty. But sometimes it can make you make mistake. So instead of you to do it like that and make mistake, better do it separately. So I'm going to place my hemming gum on the fabric, the part of the fabric like this, and I'm not using the regular hemming gum of 1 inch allowance. I have the wider one, so I'm cutting it so that it will be wider than the 1 inch. So now I'm placing it here. So I'm just going to sew it off the original line. I don't want to go into there again and add more stress. So I'm just going to sew it at the tip of the seam allowance. So it's because the essence is for you to hold it, just to hold it down there, nothing else. So I'm going to sew it. So this is it. I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. Okay, so by the time I turn it over, I flip it over and iron it. It will hold down this edge very well, and you won't be seeing the lining pop out from the inside. Okay, so this is the final outcome of the plunging neckline. You can see the neatly finished outcome. You can see the V is very visible. Though no cup here, so I didn't put any cup here. But if you're having issues fitting cups for cuts, deep cuts like this, can indicate in the comment section so I can make a tutorial on it. So if this tutorial was helpful, don't forget to like, share and comment, and also follow us on our social media platforms, our Facebook, our Instagram, our TikTok, and also our YouTube channel for more tutorials and free interesting sewing tips too. See you in the next tutorial. Bye.